Imagine if the secret to happiness had already been discovered thousands of years ago, hidden in the wisdom of ancient philosophers, religious texts, and even myths. What if modern science could either confirm or challenge these ancient ideas? Wouldn't you want to know which insights still hold true today? Jonathan Haidt's The Happiness Hypothesis embarks on this exact journey, blending ancient wisdom with modern psychology to uncover what truly makes us happy. In today's video, we'll explore the key ideas from this remarkable book, covering all 10 chapters in a way that's engaging, thought-provoking, and easy to apply to your own life. Stick around till the end, because we're going to reveal Haidt's final answer to the ultimate question: where does happiness really come from? Chapter 1. The Divided Self. Jonathan Haidt begins with one of the most fundamental and enduring ideas in psychology and philosophy: the divided nature of the self. Throughout history, different traditions have described this division in various ways. Plato spoke of a chariot with 2 horses, one representing rationality and the other desires, while Freud introduced the concept of the ID, ego, and superego. Haidt presents his own metaphor: the rider and the elephant. The rider represents our conscious, rational mind, the part of us that makes plans, analyzes situations, and thinks we're in control. The elephant, on the other hand, is our subconscious mind, our emotions, instincts, and desires. While the rider may believe it's steering, the reality is that the elephant is much stronger. When the elephant wants to go in a certain direction, the rider can do little to stop it. This explains why we struggle with self-control, why habits are hard to change, and why logical arguments rarely change deeply held beliefs. Haidt supports this with findings from modern psychology. Studies show that emotions and gut instincts drive most of our decisions, and our rational mind often justifies them afterward. This means that true change, whether it's developing better habits, overcoming fears, or changing perspectives, requires working with the elephant, not just trying to control it. Understanding this division is the first step in mastering our own minds and improving our lives. Chapter 2. Changing your mind. If we understand that our minds are divided, how do we change them? Haidt explores the difficulty of changing long-held beliefs and behaviors, revealing that our thoughts and actions are heavily influenced by biases and subconscious patterns. One of the key ideas in this chapter is negativity bias, the tendency of our brains to focus more on negative experiences than positive ones. This is an evolutionary survival mechanism. Our ancestors needed to remember dangers more than rewards. However, in the modern world, this bias leads to excessive worry, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. So, how do we change our minds for the better? Haidt discusses 3 powerful techniques. 1. Cognitive reframing. Inspired by Stoic philosophy and modern cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, this technique involves changing how we interpret events. Instead of seeing failure as a disaster, we can view it as a learning opportunity. Instead of dwelling on rejection, we can see it as redirection. By consciously shifting perspectives, we can reduce stress and increase resilience. 2. Meditation and mindfulness. Ancient traditions like Buddhism have long promoted meditation as a way to train the mind. Studies show that mindfulness practices can rewire the brain, reducing stress and increasing happiness. By learning to observe thoughts rather than being controlled by them, we gain greater emotional stability. 3. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. This psychological approach helps people recognize and change negative thought patterns. Research confirms that CBT can be as effective as medication for treating anxiety and depression. It works by challenging irrational beliefs and replacing them with more constructive ones. Haidt's conclusion: changing your mind isn't about sheer willpower. It's about working with the elephant, using gradual and strategic methods that align with how the brain naturally operates. Chapter 3. Reciprocity with a Vengeance. Humans are social creatures, and our happiness is deeply tied to our interactions with others. One of the most powerful forces shaping our relationships is reciprocity, the instinct to return favors and punish unfairness. Haidt explains that reciprocity is a universal principle found across cultures and even in the animal kingdom. There are two sides to reciprocity. Positive reciprocity. If someone helps us, we feel compelled to return the favor. This forms the foundation of trust and cooperation in societies. Negative reciprocity. If someone harms us, we feel the need to retaliate. This can escalate into cycles of revenge and conflict. Haidt warns about the dark side of this instinct, the desire for vengeance. While punishing wrongdoing seems fair, it often leads to endless cycles of retaliation. He illustrates this through historical conflicts and psychological studies, showing how grudges can destroy relationships. The solution? Practicing forgiveness. Studies show that forgiveness benefits not only relationships, but also personal well-being. Letting go of resentment reduces stress and increases happiness. However, forgiveness doesn't mean allowing injustice. It means breaking free from the emotional burden of revenge. Chapter 4. The Faults of Others. Why are we so quick to judge others, but so slow to see our own flaws? Haidt explores this question through the concept of self-serving bias, the tendency to see ourselves as moral and justified while seeing others as flawed. One key psychological mechanism at play is the inner lawyer. Our minds act like defense attorneys, justifying our actions while scrutinizing the mistakes of others. This explains why people in conflicts often believe they are completely right while the other side is completely wrong. Haidt supports this with psychological research on moral hypocrisy. In one study, people were asked to assign tasks to themselves and others, with one task being enjoyable and the other unpleasant. Most participants chose the better task for themselves while still believing they had acted fairly. This demonstrates how we unconsciously bend morality in our favor. The lesson? To improve relationships and avoid unnecessary conflict, we must recognize our biases and practice humility. Before blaming others, we should ask ourselves, is it possible that I'm also at fault? The ability to see situations from multiple perspectives leads to better understanding and conflict resolution. Chapter 5. The Pursuit of Happiness. What truly makes us happy? Is it wealth, success, or pleasure? Haidt debunks common myths about happiness and presents two key psychological principles. 1. The progress principle. We often think happiness comes from achieving goals, but research shows that working toward a goal is often more fulfilling than actually reaching it. The joy is in the journey, not just the destination. 2. The adaptation principle. Human beings quickly adapt to both positive and negative changes. This is why a salary increase, a new house, or even winning the lottery only brings temporary happiness. Over time, we return to our baseline level of happiness, a phenomenon known as the hedonic treadmill. Haidt argues that lasting happiness doesn't come from material success, but from deeper sources. Relationships, strong social connections, are one of the most reliable predictors of happiness. Flow, a state of deep engagement in meaningful activities where time seems to disappear, leads to lasting fulfillment. Purpose, finding meaning in work, relationships, or a cause greater than oneself contributes to long-term well-being. Ultimately, Haidt re-examines the ancient idea that happiness comes from within. While this is partly true, he argues that external conditions, especially relationships and meaningful work, also play a vital role. The key is balance. Happiness comes from both internal mindset and external engagement. Chapter 6. Love and Attachments. Love is one of the most profound and complex emotions that shape human happiness. In this chapter, Haidt explores the psychological and biological foundations of love and attachment, drawing from both ancient wisdom and modern science. One of the most influential theories discussed is attachment theory, which explains how our early childhood relationships with caregivers shape the way we experience love in adulthood. Psychologists have identified 3 main attachment styles. Secure attachment. People with this style feel comfortable with intimacy and are able to form strong, trusting relationships. Anxious attachment. These individuals crave closeness, but often fear abandonment, leading to emotional highs and lows in relationships. Avoidant attachment. People with this attachment style are uncomfortable with emotional closeness and tend to distance themselves in relationships. Haidt also differentiates between two types of love. Passionate love. This is the intense, fiery love that often characterizes the early stages of a relationship. It is fueled by dopamine and other neurochemicals, but tends to fade over time. Companionate love. This is the deep, enduring bond that develops over time, based on trust, mutual support, and shared experiences. Many people chase the excitement of passionate love, only to be disappointed when it fades. However, Haidt argues that true happiness comes from cultivating companionate love, which provides lasting fulfillment. He encourages people to shift their expectations of love from constant excitement to deep connection, emphasizing that real love is built over time through commitment, effort, and shared life experiences. Chapter 7. The Uses of Adversity. Can suffering make us stronger? Haidt explores the paradoxical idea that adversity can lead to personal growth and resilience. This concept, known as post-traumatic growth, suggests that people who endure hardship often emerge wiser and more capable than before. There are 5 main areas in which people grow after adversity. 1. Stronger relationships. Facing difficulties often strengthens bonds with others, as shared struggles create deeper connections. 2. Greater appreciation for life. Surviving a difficult experience can lead to a renewed sense of gratitude and appreciation for everyday joys. 3. New possibilities. Hardship can force people to reevaluate their lives and open doors to new opportunities they hadn't considered before. 4. Personal strength. Overcoming adversity fosters a sense of resilience, making future challenges easier to handle. 5. Spiritual or philosophical growth. Many people develop a deeper understanding of life's meaning after facing suffering. However, not everyone grows from trauma. The key factor that determines whether hardship leads to growth or lasting damage is meaning-making, the ability to find purpose in suffering. This aligns with the teachings of ancient philosophies and religions, which have long emphasized the role of suffering in personal development. Haidt concludes that while suffering is never desirable, it can be an opportunity for transformation. Those who actively work to make sense of their pain, rather than simply endure it, are more likely to emerge stronger and happier. Chapter 8. The Felicity of Virtue. Does being virtuous make us happier? Throughout history, many great thinkers, Aristotle, Confucius, and Buddha, have argued that true happiness comes from living a life of virtue. Haidt examines this idea through the lens of modern psychology, exploring whether moral behavior genuinely leads to greater well-being. Psychological research suggests that practicing virtues such as kindness, honesty, and gratitude has measurable benefits. Acts of kindness boost serotonin levels, improving mood and reducing stress. Gratitude has been linked to increased happiness and improved relationships. Self-discipline leads to long-term success and fulfillment. However, Haidt also warns against a rigid, perfectionist approach to virtue. Many people view morality in black and white terms, leading to self-righteousness and judgment of others. Instead, he advocates for practical virtue, a balanced approach that prioritizes kindness, self-awareness, and humility. He also discusses the rise of positive psychology, a field that focuses on strengths and virtues rather than mental illness. This movement has confirmed what ancient wisdom long suggested, that cultivating virtues leads to a more meaningful and satisfying life. The key takeaway? Virtue isn't just about being good in a moral sense. It's about aligning your actions with your values to create a life that feels fulfilling and purposeful. Chapter 9. Divinity with or without God. What role does spirituality play in happiness? In this chapter, Haidt explores the human tendency to seek something greater than ourselves, whether through religion, nature, or transcendental experiences. One of the most fascinating ideas in this chapter is the ethic of divinity. Across cultures, people have an innate sense of the sacred and the profane. This explains why certain actions feel deeply immoral, even if they don't cause harm. For example, defiling a religious object, or disrespecting cultural traditions. Haidt also introduces the concept of elevation, a feeling of awe and inspiration we experience when witnessing acts of moral beauty. Whether it's seeing someone perform a selfless act or experiencing nature's grandeur, elevation connects us to something beyond ourselves. But does this mean we need religion to be happy? Haidt argues that while religious beliefs can provide a strong sense of meaning, spirituality can take many forms. People can find transcendence through meditation and mindfulness, art, music, and nature, deep connections with others. The core message of this chapter is that humans are wired for transcendence. Whether through religion or secular experiences of awe, tapping into this dimension of life can enhance our well-being and sense of purpose. Chapter 10. Happiness Comes from Between. After exploring ancient wisdom, psychology, and neuroscience, Haidt arrives at his final conclusion. Happiness comes from between. But what does this mean? Happiness is not found within us in isolation, nor is it purely determined by external circumstances. Instead, it emerges from the connections we form between ourselves and the world around us. Between individuals, strong relationships are the most reliable source of happiness. Between work and purpose, meaningful work gives life direction and fulfillment. Between self and society, engaging with communities, contributing to a cause, and feeling part of something bigger than ourselves enhances well-being. Haidt argues that the biggest mistake people make is focusing too much on personal happiness in isolation. Self-improvement and mindfulness are valuable, but true fulfillment comes from relationships, meaningful work, and a sense of belonging. Ultimately, the happiness hypothesis reveals that happiness is not a solo pursuit. It thrives in the spaces between us, between love and work, between self and others, and between personal growth and contributing to the greater good. So what's the ultimate formula for happiness? Haidt's final takeaway is that happiness isn't found in any one thing. It's about balance. It's about aligning the rider and the elephant, balancing ancient wisdom with modern science, and cultivating relationships, work, and purpose in harmony. What do you think about Haidt's conclusions? Do you agree that happiness comes from between? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the happiness hypothesis, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more thought-provoking book summaries. See you in the next video.